I was on my second cup of coffee when the doorbell rang. Saturday morning, 9:47, still in gray pajamas. Jake was playing golf with his boss, wasn't supposed to be back until noon. I shuffled to the door, hair still damp from the shower, expecting a delivery or maybe the neighbor kid selling wrapping paper for school. The woman on my porch was blonde, mid-20s, holding a Starbucks cup with Emma, written in black Sharpie. She had a nervous smile, the kind people wear when they're trying to make a good first impression. I noticed her cup was half empty, like she'd been sitting in her car working up the courage to knock. "Hi," she said, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "I'm Emma. Jake said you're his roommate, and I wanted to meet you since we're getting serious." The word roommate hit me like a physical thing. My brain needed about 2 full seconds to process what she'd just said, because at first I thought I'd heard her wrong. But she was standing there waiting for me to respond, still smiling, still nervous, and I realized she meant it. She actually thought I was Jake's roommate. My face stayed neutral. I could feel it happening, like I was watching myself from outside my body. But my hands started shaking, just slightly, enough that I gripped the doorframe to steady them. Part of me wanted to scream, to tell her exactly who I was and watch her face collapse. The other part knew that if I did that, she'd leave, and I'd lose whatever this was. "Oh!" I heard myself say. "Come in!" She followed me to the kitchen, her sneakers squeaking softly on the hardwood. I poured myself another cup of coffee even though I didn't need it, just to have something to do with my hands. The pot rattled against the mug when I lifted it, and I hoped she didn't notice. Emma sat down at the kitchen table like she belonged there, setting her Starbucks cup on the surface I'd wiped down that morning. "Jake talks about you sometimes," she said, "how you travel for work a lot, and he basically has the place to himself most of the time." The phrase, "his place," made my chest tighten. This was our house. My name was on the deed alongside his. We bought it 4 years ago with money my parents gave us for the down payment. But she didn't know that because Jake had told her it was his place, and I was just some woman staying here temporarily. I sat down across from her, wrapping both hands around my coffee mug to keep them from shaking. My brain was moving fast, calculating. My work trips were 3 or 4 days a month, marketing conferences mostly. That must be when Emma came over. When Jake told me he had overnight sales meetings, he was probably with her then too, or with someone else. Because if he could lie about me being his roommate, what else had he lied about? "You two look happy," I said, keeping my voice steady and light. Emma's face lit up. She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was the two of them at the beach, both in swimsuits, sunset in the background. Jake had his arm around her waist. She was beaming at the camera. He was looking at her like she was the only person in the world. "This was 2 weeks ago," she said. "We drove down to the coast for the weekend." 2 weeks ago, Jake had told me he was at a sales conference in Portland. I'd texted him goodnight both nights, and he'd responded with heart emojis. "When did he mention the roommate situation?" I asked. Emma took a sip of her coffee. "Pretty early on, actually. He said you were dealing with a bad breakup and he was giving you space to heal. He's really thoughtful like that." The words landed like slaps. Bad breakup, giving me space. Thoughtful. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Let me check if Jake left a note about when he'd be back," I said. "He's terrible about texting." I walked down the hall to the home office, closing the door behind me. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, cold, precise. I grabbed Jake's iPad from the desk, the one he synced to his phone because he liked having a bigger screen for work emails. I unlocked it with his passcode. 0816. Our anniversary, August 16th. The irony wasn't lost on me. I opened messages. The app loaded, and there was Emma's name at the top of the list. I clicked on her thread first. Pet names. Hotel bookings sent via link. "Miss you, baby, and can't wait to see you Friday, and you make me so happy." I scrolled down. Then I backed out and looked at the list again. There was another name I didn't recognize. Sarah. I opened that thread. More pet names. Overlapping dates with Emma's messages. "Had fun last night, babe," with a kiss emoji sent on a Tuesday 3 weeks ago. The next morning, he'd texted Emma, "Good morning," with a heart. I kept scrolling. Found another name. Michelle. Venmo requests linked in the thread. $200 for dinner. $150 for concert tickets with a heart emoji. Sent 4 days before the beach trip with Emma. I stared at the screen. At the 3 different women, all in the same week. All thinking they were special. All being lied to in different, specific ways. I closed the iPad and stood there for a moment, listening to the hum of the refrigerator down the hall, the distant sound of Emma's shoes tapping against the floor in the kitchen. Part of me knew right then that I had to decide something. I could explode, or I could weaponize this. I picked up the iPad and walked back to the kitchen, holding it casually against my side like it was just a tablet, not a bomb. Emma looked up when I sat down. "He'll be back in about an hour," I said, placing the iPad on the table next to my coffee mug. "Tell me more about how you two met." She smiled, relieved, and started talking about a networking event 6 months ago. I nodded in all the right places, asked the right questions, and the whole time I could feel the weight of the iPad next to me, all those messages just sitting there, waiting. I let Emma talk for about 10 minutes. She told me about the networking event, how Jake had made her laugh, how he'd asked for her number and texted her that same night. She talked about their first date at an Italian place downtown, how he'd ordered wine she'd never heard of and knew exactly what to say to the waiter. The whole time, I was doing math in my head. 6 months ago was July. We'd gone to my sister's wedding in July. Jake had been my date, worn a navy suit, danced with me to our song. 2 days later, he'd apparently met Emma and started whatever this was. I stood up and walked to the living room. Emma kept talking from the kitchen, something about a concert they'd gone to. I picked up the silver-framed photo from the bookshelf, the 8x10 we'd had made after our wedding. Me in a white dress, him in a tux, both of us smiling like we'd won something. The date was engraved on the frame. August 16th, 2016. I carried it back to the kitchen and set it on the table between our coffee mugs, turning it so it faced her. Emma stopped mid-sentence. The color drained from her face, and I could see it happen in real time, the way her skin went from pink to pale under her makeup. "What is this?" she asked. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "I'm not his roommate. I'm his wife. We've been married 8 years. She shook her head, and her blonde hair swung across her shoulders. "No, you're lying. He told me you were separated, that you're bitter, and you won't move out." I slid the iPad across the table. It made a soft scraping sound against the wood. "Read." Emma picked it up with both hands. They were trembling now, just like mine had been 20 minutes ago. She looked down at the screen, at her own message thread still open. I watched her eyes move as she scrolled, seeing her own texts to Jake. Her face shifted from denial to confusion, like she was trying to make the pieces fit, and they wouldn't. "Keep scrolling," I said. She swiped with her thumb, and I saw the exact moment she found Sarah's thread. Her eyes widened slightly, and she clicked it open. The most recent message was from 3 weeks ago, a Tuesday night. "Had fun last night, babe," with a kiss emoji. "Who's Sarah?" Emma's voice had gotten quieter, thinner. "I don't know," I said. "I found her thread 5 minutes before you got here." Emma scrolled faster now, her thumb moving in quick, jerky motions. She found Michelle's thread and opened it. I watched her read the Venmo requests. $200 for dinner, $150 for concert tickets with a heart. The dates were right there, time-stamped. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "How many other women are there?" "At least 2 more that I can see on here," I said. "I've been in the dark for 6 months. Apparently so have you." Emma started crying. Not loud, messy sobs, but quiet tears that made her mascara run in thin black lines down her cheeks. She wiped at her face with the back of her hand, smearing it worse. "He told me I was different," she said, "that you, the roommate, were just a past complication he was dealing with until you found somewhere else to live." I leaned forward, keeping my voice level. "Look at the dates. Sarah, Tuesday night. He texted you good morning on Wednesday like nothing happened. Michelle got a $200 Venmo 3 days before your beach trip." Emma read the timestamps, and I could see the realization settling into her face, changing it. She wasn't crying as hard now, but the tears kept coming, quiet and steady. "I'm not special," she whispered. "I'm just one of them." The kitchen was silent except for the sound of her breathing and the soft hum of the refrigerator. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say that would make it better, and I wasn't sure I wanted to make it better for her anyway. Part of me was still angry at her for showing up here, for being young and blonde and believing his lies. But another part of me knew she was a victim too, just a different kind. Emma wiped her face again, harder this time, leaving red marks on her skin. She looked at me, her eyes puffy and red-rimmed. "What are you going to do?" The question hung there between us. I could hear a car passing on the street outside, the sound fading as it drove away. My coffee had gone cold in the mug, but I picked it up anyway and took a sip. It tasted bitter and wrong. "I don't know yet," I said, "but that was a lie. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I just hadn't decided if I was going to let her help me do it." Emma set the iPad down on the table carefully, like it might break. She looked at the wedding photo, then at me, then back at the photo. How long have you known? About you. 20 minutes. About something being wrong? Maybe a few weeks. Little things that didn't add up. But I didn't know it was this. She nodded slowly, like that made sense to her. He's really good at lying. Yeah, I said. He really is. Emma pulled her phone out of her pocket and stared at it for a moment. Then she looked back up at me, and her face had changed again. The tears had stopped. Her jaw was set in a way it hadn't been before. I want to help, she said. Whatever you're planning to do, I want to help. What do you need? I looked at her sitting there, mascara smudged, Starbucks cup empty, 25 years old, and just realizing the man she thought loved her had been using her, and I made a decision. Screenshots, I said. Everything. We spent the next 10 minutes with our phones out, cameras clicking. Emma screenshotted her entire thread with Jake, every pet name and hotel booking and I love you he'd sent her. I used the iPad to capture Sarah's messages, Michelle's Venmo requests, the overlapping dates that proved he'd been juggling all three of them at once. Emma's hands were steadier now. She had a purpose, something to focus on besides the crying. She airdropped everything to my laptop, and I watched the files appear one by one on my screen. Proof. Evidence. Ammunition. When we were done, I looked at her across the table. Now text him. Say you're here, that his roommate is nice. Keep it innocent. Emma's hands shook a little as she typed, but she did it. I watched her thumbs move across the screen. Hey babe, at your place, your roommate is so sweet, with a smiley face emoji. Her phone buzzed 30 seconds later. She held it up so I could see. What? Emma, what are you doing there? No punctuation, no emoji, just panic in text form. Emma looked at me and I nodded. She typed back, You said I should meet her. 3 dots appeared immediately. Jake was typing. Then they disappeared. Then they appeared again. Disappeared. Finally, a message came through. Leave now? I'm coming home? Why? Emma typed. I'm having fun. She's telling me about her work trips. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 more times. I could picture him wherever he was, deleting and retyping, trying to figure out how to control this. Finally, I'll explain when I get there. Just wait. I opened Find My iPhone on my laptop. Jake's red pin was at Riverside Golf Course 15 miles away. As I watched, the pin started moving. He was on the highway, heading home. We have 18 minutes, I said. I walked to the office with Emma following behind me. I opened my laptop and hit print on everything we'd screenshotted. The HP printer on the desk started feeding pages one after another. Bank statements with Venmo transactions highlighted in yellow, hotel bookings from embassy suites, dates that overlapped with his supposed work trips. All 3 message threads, printed out so you could see them side by side. And his Bumble profile, still active, still saying, single, 35, sales executive. I carried the stack of papers back to the kitchen and laid them across the table like an evidence board. Then I opened the drawer by the sink and pulled out a manila envelope. The divorce papers inside were crisp, fresh. I'd filed them yesterday. Jake would be served on Monday. I placed the envelope at his usual seat at the table. Emma watched me work, not saying anything. When I was done, she looked at the evidence spread across our kitchen table, at the envelope waiting for him, and then at me. What's my last name? She asked suddenly. I looked at her. I don't know. He never mentioned it. Exactly, she said. He doesn't know it either. I'm saved in his phone as M with a heart emoji. 6 months, and he's never needed to know my last name. We sat there in silence, waiting. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking on the wall, counting down. The refrigerator cycled on with a low hum. Emma picked at her thumbnail, a nervous habit I recognized because I did the same thing. 14 minutes. 12. 10. At 6 minutes, Emma stood up. I should go, before he gets here. You don't have to. She shook her head. I do. I can't see him right now, but I'll testify. Whatever you need for the divorce, I'll do it. She walked to the door, and I followed her. On the porch, she turned back. Thank you for not treating me like the enemy. You could have. You didn't know, I said. Neither did you. She walked to her car, a white Honda parked at the curb. I watched her get in and drive away, her Starbucks cup still sitting on my kitchen table. 4 minutes later, I heard his car in the driveway. The engine cut off. Tires had sprayed gravel when he'd pulled in too fast. The car door slammed. Jake rushed in through the front door. He was wearing his navy golf polo and white pants, his cleats clicking on the hardwood floor. His face was red and sweating, and he was breathing hard like he'd been running. He stopped in the kitchen doorway and went completely still. I was sitting at the table, calm, coffee mug in front of me, papers spread across the surface, the manila envelope at his seat. He stared at the evidence board, at the message threads and bank statements and hotel confirmations. His mouth opened, then closed. He looked around the kitchen like he was trying to find Emma, make sure she was really gone. "Where is she?" he asked. "She left." He gripped the back of his chair, and I could see his knuckles go white. "What did you tell her?" "I didn't have to tell her anything," I said. "I showed her your iPad. She figured it out herself." Jake's breathing was getting faster. His golf cleats scraped against the floor as he shifted his weight. "This is insane." "Emma's confused. She's young. She doesn't understand. We can work through this." I slid the manila envelope across the table toward him. "Filed yesterday. You'll be served on Monday. You have 48 hours to move out, or I change the locks." He picked up the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out the papers. His eyes scanned the first page, then widened when he got to the property section. "You can't kick me out," he said. "My house," I said. "My deed. My parents put down $60,000 in 2018 when we bought this place. Page 3, paragraph 5. Jake flipped through the pages, and I watched his face fall as he read. The property clause, the division of assets, the timeline for him to vacate. When he looked up, his eyes were different. Desperate in a way I'd never seen before. "Emma's going to testify," I said before he could speak. "She's got screenshots of everything. Sarah and Michelle are already copied on my lawyer's email. They're cooperative. You've got a timeline working against you, not leverage. 48 hours. He sat down heavily in the chair, and the divorce papers crumpled under his grip. Things were stale between us. I needed something, I don't know, exciting. It wasn't about you. "You told a 25-year-old I'm your roommate," I said. "You scheduled your affairs around my travel calendar. You Venmo'd $200 for a concert the same week you told me we couldn't afford marriage counseling." "That's not bored. That's calculated." His face flushed darker. 8 years has to mean something. We can do therapy. I'll delete the apps. Whatever you want. Anything." "Can you remember Emma's last name?" The question landed, and he went quiet. His mouth opened, then closed. "You gaslit her for 6 months," I said. "Same thing with Sarah. Same with Michelle. You lied to me every single day and came home and slept in our bed like nothing was wrong. Therapy doesn't fix that." Jake stood up, started pacing. His cleats scraped and scuffed against the hardwood floor, leaving small marks I'd have to deal with later. "What about retirement? The cars? My 401k? House is mine. Half the 401k is mine. You'll pay alimony for 3 years based on financial infidelity using marital assets. My lawyer's very good at this. Your affair partners are very cooperative. You can sign and settle, or you can drag it out and lose more." He stopped pacing and stared at me. "You're destroying our life." "You destroyed it," I said. "I'm just cleaning up the mess. You have until Monday morning. Start packing." Jake walked to the door, his cleats clicking with each step. He stopped in the doorway and looked back at me. "I never meant for this to happen. I didn't say anything." There was nothing left to say that would matter. The door closed behind him. I heard his car start, the engine turning over, then the sound of gravel under his tires as he backed out of the driveway. The house went quiet again. I sat alone in the kitchen with the evidence still spread across the table. The adrenaline that had been holding me together for the past 2 hours started to crash, and my hands finally began shaking the way they should have when Emma first said the word roommate. I picked up my coffee mug. The coffee inside was completely cold now, bitter and wrong, but I drank it anyway. 3 weeks later, the divorce settled out of court. I kept the house. Jake agreed to $2,400 a month in alimony for 36 months. The retirement split was 60-40 in my favor. The judge cited financial deception and misuse of marital funds in her ruling. Jake moved into an extended stay hotel on the south side of town. I heard from a mutual friend that he was looking for an apartment but couldn't afford much after the alimony payment started. Emma posted on Reddit about 2 weeks after everything happened. She used a throwaway account on the relationships subreddit. "Boyfriend told me his wife was his roommate. Posted to warn others." She didn't use names, but she included enough details that it went viral on our city's subreddit. 15,000 upvotes in 3 days. Jake's clients started recognizing the story. A few of them asked him about it directly. Most just quietly stopped using him for their accounts. His sales dropped 40% over the next 2 months, and he ended up requesting a territory transfer. The company sent him to a smaller market, 200 miles away. I found out later that Sarah had filed a bar complaint against Jake's friend Marcus, the attorney who'd introduced them at a legal networking event. Apparently, attorneys aren't supposed to facilitate romantic relationships that involve their clients' spouses. Marcus got a formal reprimand. Michelle just blocked Jake on everything and moved on. I never met her. 6 months after Emma showed up on my doorstep, I was sitting in the same kitchen at the same table. The evidence was gone. The house was quiet in a way that felt peaceful instead of empty. Morning light came through the window over the sink. My phone buzzed. A text from Emma. Started therapy last month. It's helping. Thank you for not treating me like the enemy that day. You chose not to destroy me when you could have. That meant something. I read it twice, then typed back. You were a victim too. I'm glad you're healing. She sent back a heart emoji, and that was it. We didn't need to talk after that. We'd both gotten what we needed from each other that Saturday morning. I set my phone down and looked around my kitchen. Our kitchen. Except it wasn't ours anymore. It was just mine. When someone unravels your entire life in one sentence, you get to choose how you respond. You can explode, scream, make a scene. Or you can strategize. You can stay calm and gather your evidence and let them hang themselves with their own lies. Rage burns hot and fast. Evidence burns forever. I chose evidence. I chose composure. And composure, I learned, is the coldest revenge. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. New stories drop every day. If you want to hear more about the moments when consequences finally caught up, hit subscribe. I'll be here tomorrow with another one. Until then, take care of yourselves.